What's going on, MMA fans? I'm here to do my CBS Elite XC Saturday Night Fights review video. Talk about the 5 fights we got to see on the main card. First fight of the night was Brett Rogers versus John Murphy, of course. Both guys come out. John Murphy tries to use some inside leg kicks, tries to get inside Rogers' reach, and gets dropped. Rogers throws a couple really good combinations, hits him with a hook, and then kind of a backhand, after the fact, as Rogers was actually pulling back from the punch, and drops Murphy in the first round with a knockout. Great fight. Rogers is probably going to get either Giant Silva, or he's probably going to get Kimbo, or the winner of the Kimbo James Thompson fight. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Next fight of the night was Joey Villasenor versus Phil Baroni. Phil Baroni and Joey come out, exchange a couple shots. Phil actually gets Villasenor down on the ground, and I don't know what he was thinking. He was inside of Villasenor's guard and threw a couple shots, and then kind of just stood up and let Villasenor come at him, and Villasenor took advantage of it. Threw a nice body shot and a couple combinations, rocking Baroni, cutting him, and then drops him and ends the fight in the first round. Another great knockout. So Villasenor is on the way up, and Baroni is on the way out. So tough fight for Phil Baroni, but I think that was a really bad matchup for him, and that's really why I picked Villasenor. I didn't see where Baroni was gonna beat Villasenor anywhere in the game as far as the stand up and even on the ground. So next fight of the night, Gina Carano versus Caitlin Young. This was a really good fight. The first round was back and forth. Carano trying to throw some inside leg kicks, couple good shots, rocking Caitlin Young. Caitlin Young ends up getting it down to the ground for a portion of the first round, trying to use some ground and pound, but Gina used good defense on the ground, used her guard real well. Second round, Gina just throwing some good shots. Caitlin landed excellent leg kicks all throughout this fight. I was really impressed. She did a really good job, a lot better than I thought she would do, but Carano in the end, just too much for Caitlin Young, and throwing the jab after jab after jab, and then landing with the right, and just swells Caitlin Young's eye all the way up, and they end up, the doctor stops the fight, I guess because Caitlin Young couldn't see out of her eyes. So that fight was stopped by a doctor stoppage. It was a TKO in the second round, at the end of the second round. Next fight. This fight was, oh my god. If this would have kept going, and I'll explain in a second, this could have been a Fight of the Year candidate right here. This was a great fight. Definitely was Fight of the Night, without a doubt. Robbie Lawler versus Scott Smith. The first round, both guys come out landing. Robbie Lawler in a couple really good combinations, good clinch. Scott Smith, great in the clinch. Scott Smith got the worst of the exchanges in the first round, but landed a couple good knees towards the end of the first. And actually got rocked at the end of the first round. I thought that fight was going to be stopped, but we go into the second, and Scott Smith starts dominating, throwing some knees and some vicious combinations, and cutting Robbie right on the top of his head. And I don't think it actually, from what I remember, I think it may have been a headbutt. I don't think an elbow or a punch actually caused that, but God, Scott was just landing some. This was the best Scott Smith I've seen thus far. I mean, the way he looked against Robbie Lawler was pretty damn good. Robbie was continuously trying to change levels, trying to find maybe a takedown, trying to fake out Scott Smith, and Scott just kept throwing good leg kicks, good inside jabs, good combinations, and we go to the third round, and again, both guys going back and forth. Robbie got the better, I think, of the exchanges in this round for the most part, but Scott still really was making Robbie wobble around. He did it really bad in the second round, but I mean in the third he was still making Robbie think a little bit, and really just Robbie did not look comfortable. You could see he was like, oh man, when's the next shot coming? You could really see it in Robbie's face, as opposed to the first round where Robbie was kind of taunting Scott Smith. So at the end of this, or towards the middle of the third round, Robbie Lawler actually pokes Scott Smith in the eye. And the doctors end up saying, because Scott Smith said twice that he couldn't see out of his eye, they ended up stopping the fight and calling it a no contest. And I understand a lot of people are going to say this is controversial, but I see where, you know, you really can't tell a doctor you can't see out of your eye. If at that point you say something like that, they're not going to give you the 5 minutes to recover. If it's something like, you know, a kick in the groin or, you know, something else, you know, if Scott wouldn't have said he couldn't have, he could see and he was fine, they would have given him the 5 minutes. But he, you know, he repeatedly said more than once, I can't see, and you know that's why the doctors did what they did. So this fight ends up being a no contest. These guys are going to fight again. Gary Shaw ended up giving both the guys winning salaries, so that was pretty interesting. And kudos to Gary Shaw. I mean, that was a big step up for him. And I think that really, you know, in the end, people are going to be upset. But if you go back and you look at what Gary Shaw just did and what, you know, this really means for a first-time primetime public television event, that's a big deal. No contest. We're going to see these guys fight again for the middleweight title. Next fight, Kimbo Slice and James Thompson for the main event. James Thompson did exactly what I freaking said he was going to do. You know, and I hate this because I sit here and I kept thinking to myself, what if James Thompson comes out and game plans this fight? And he did. He said he's going to take Kimbo down. He takes Kimbo down. Kimbo landed a couple good shots in the first round right before James takes him down, but James takes him down, starts trying to work some ground and pound, even though James isn't really the best on the ground. Kimbo rolls him, gets back up, gets him into guard. He actually rolls over into James Thompson's guard, into half guard, but then they stand it up. And Kimbo did pretty good. He rocked James Thompson a couple times in the first round, and then the fight goes to the second round. And Thompson, again, just taking Kimbo down, and both guys gassed. Kimbo was really, really gassed and was able to be easily taken down. And a guy like James Thompson, he's not the best takedown artist in the world, so you know this is going to be some serious, serious questions for Kimbo, and I don't think he's at the level that he needs to be yet. This is exactly what I've been saying to a lot of the guys in Stickum and, you know, and a couple other guys in the MMA YouTube community. Kimbo has still, you know, he's still a young mixed martial artist. He's only been around the game for 7 or 8 months. There's a long way for him to go. He is not a top heavyweight by no means. And tonight's fight proved it. Even though, you know, we're going to get down to the brass tacks of what ended up happening in the third round, Kimbo is still not, you know, ready, I think, for anyone that's going to bring him a real threat. And somebody like Brett Rogers, a guy that does have, you know, a considerable wrestling background, does have a pretty good ground game, that's going to be a tough test for Kimbo. And if they put that fight together, that's going to be interesting. So, but the third round, Kimbo, you know, got taken down again. James Thompson trying to get a crucifix, trying to work a Kimura, then an Americana. And Thompson just wasn't doing anything. He wasn't landing any good shots. He wasn't landing good elbows. Good forearms, so Murgliata stands it up, and Kimbo just starts rocking James Thompson, and Thompson was out on his feet. You could see it. If you looked at his eyes, he was like this all over the place standing. He was out, and Murgliata saw that to stop the fight. So Thompson loses in the third round via a TKO, I believe is what they're going to call it, and Kimbo wins even though he was gassed. So some serious questions for Kimbo. I think he's going to go back, and I think he's going to, you know, really seriously. I think he's been taking his training seriously. It looks like he's been taking his training seriously, except for the cardio. So his ground game actually looked pretty good. And again, yeah, that's a guy. It's James Thompson, but still, it looks like it's a little improved. But the cardio and, you know, being able to get taken down so easily, even though he wasn't able, you know, in the first round, he did have some pretty good takedown defense. You know, he's got to work on his cardio, and that's pretty much what I have to say about Kimbo and his performance. But other than that, good knockout, a good TKO, and I guess we'll see him fight again, probably against Brett Rogers. I think that's the fight they're going to put together. So you guys let me know what you think. Give me some comments, constructive, negative, positive. And on that note, you guys have a great day.